Okay, welcome to another edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Episode 74 is ready to go on this Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. So, with that, in the early 1980s, video games were everywhere. Arcades were filled with flashing lights, electronic sounds, and crowds of players eager to test their skills. At home, families were discovering the joy of playing video games on consoles like the Atari 2600 and the Intellivision. But it was a time of rapid growth, fierce competition, and bold innovation. Into this landscape stepped a company that few expected to succeed in video games, Coleco. Known primarily for toys and electronic gadgets, Coleco introduced a console in 1982 that promised something revolutionary: arcade-quality gaming in the living room. That console was the ColecoVision. Okay, we're ready to go for this October 2nd, 2025, Thursday edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. It's episode 74, and I'm your host, Jason DeCanio, ready to go with the ColecoVision. Oh, yeah. The story of ColecoVision begins decades earlier, as Coleco was founded in 1932 as the Connecticut Leather Company. Yeah. At first, it produced leather supplies, but over time the company shifted into plastics, then toys, and eventually electronics. By the 1970s, Coleco had already dipped its toes into the video game market with the Telstar line of Pong-style consoles. The Telstar series sold well at first, but the market quickly became overcrowded with similar systems. Coleco nearly went bankrupt, but the company survived and learned valuable lessons about the growing demand for home entertainment. By the early 1980s, Coleco was ready to try again, this time with a far more ambitious product. In August of 1982, Coleco launched the ColecoVision. The console was marketed as the system that could bring arcade-quality games into the home. Its slogan promised the arcade quality you can bring home. The launch lineup was strong, but one game stood above all the others: Donkey Kong. Coleco had secured the rights from Nintendo to bundle the arcade hit with every console. This was a brilliant move, as Donkey Kong was one of the most popular arcade games in the world, and having it included for free gave ColecoVision an immediate advantage over its competitors. The ColecoVision was a technical powerhouse for its time. It featured a Zilog Z80A processor, 16 kilobytes of video RAM, and graphics capabilities that far surpassed the Atari 2600 and Mattel Intellivision. The system could display up to 32 sprites on screen with smooth scrolling and vibrant colors. The controllers were unique, and each featured a small joystick, 2 side buttons, and a numeric keypad. Game-specific overlays could be placed over the keypad, giving players customized controls for each title. And while the controllers were sometimes criticized for being awkward, they allowed for more complex gameplay than most competitors. Perhaps the most innovative feature was expandability. Coleco released several expansion modules, the most famous being expansion module number 1, which allowed the ColecoVision to play Atari 2600 games. This instantly gave the system access to hundreds of titles, making it one of the most versatile consoles of its era. ColecoVision's library grew rapidly. By 1983, more than 125 titles were available. Many were faithful arcade ports, including Zaxxon, Donkey Kong Jr., and Ladybug. These games looked and played closer to their arcade counterparts than anything else on the market. Coleco also developed original titles such as Smurf, Rescue, and Gargamel's Castle, which showcased the system's colorful graphics. Third-party developers like Parker Brothers and Sega contributed as well, bringing hits like Frogger and Turbo to the console. The combination of arcade-quality graphics, a strong library, and the ability to play Atari games made ColecoVision a must-have system for many gamers. The ColecoVision was an immediate success. Within its first year, it sold more than 500,000 units. By 1983, sales had surpassed 2 million, and Coleco had gone from being a toy company to a major player in the video game industry almost overnight. Retailers couldn't keep the system in stock, and ColecoVision was often sold out during the holiday season. For a brief moment, it seemed like Coleco might even overtake Atari as the leader in home gaming. But just as quickly as ColecoVision rose, the entire industry began to collapse. In 1983, the video game market crashed. Too many consoles, too many low-quality games, and declining consumer confidence led to a massive downturn. And even though ColecoVision had strong hardware and games, it couldn't escape the crash. Sales plummeted, and retailers became hesitant to stock video game products. Coleco tried to keep momentum by releasing new expansions, including the Atom computer, which turned the ColecoVision into a home computer. Unfortunately, the Atom was plagued with technical problems and failed to gain traction. By 1985, Coleco discontinued the ColecoVision. The company shifted focus back to toys, most notably the Cabbage Patch Kids dolls, which became a cultural phenomenon. However, the success of the dolls wasn't enough to save the company, and by 1988, Coleco filed for bankruptcy. The ColecoVision had lasted only a few years, but its impact was undeniable. The ColecoVision remains one of the most beloved consoles of the early 1980s. It proved that home consoles could deliver near-arcade experiences, setting a standard for future systems. Its modular design, strong third-party support, and faithful arcade ports influenced the direction of the industry. And for many gamers, ColecoVision was their first taste of arcade-quality gaming at home. Even today, retro gaming enthusiasts celebrate the system, and emulators and re-releases keep its library alive. The ColecoVision's pack-in game, Donkey Kong, was one of the first major collaborations between Nintendo and another company. Expansion Module Number 1, which allowed Atari 2600 compatibility, led to legal battles with Atari, but Coleco ultimately prevailed. The Atom computer, though a commercial failure, was one of the first attempts to merge a video game console with a home computer, and ColecoVision's graphics were so advanced for the time that many players mistook its games for direct arcade copies. The ColecoVision story is one of ambition, innovation, and the volatility of the video game industry. It rose quickly, delivered unforgettable experiences, and then disappeared almost as fast. Yet its influence lives on. And though ColecoVision was a product of its time, it remains a symbol of the excitement and creativity of the early 1980s. For those who played it, the memories of Donkey Kong, Zaxxon, and Smurf will never fade. And for the industry, the ColecoVision stands as proof that even a toy company could change the course of video game history, if only for a moment. And there you have it, friends. A brief look, but a fantastic look, at one of the most interesting gaming consoles of all time, the ColecoVision. And I owned one as one of my first gaming consoles when I was a kid growing up. I unfortunately did not have an Atari. This was my mode of entertainment for most of the early 80s up until about the time that Nintendo finally graced us with its presence. But I didn't get my first Nintendo until 1990, some 5 years later. I was one of the very least people to get a gaming console when it first came out due to prices that my parent did not want to pay, and that's totally fine. So when it came to gaming consoles, you had to wait in our family. But that's okay, because we entertained ourselves with a whole bunch of other things that kept us busy. We did not make gaming consoles the center of our attention, the center of the household either. Lots of TV programs, lots of board games, and a ColecoVision, and later a Nintendo to keep it going. What more could you ask for? If you were lucky to own one, you were one of the more, famous households on your block, possibly, because everybody wanted to come over to your house and possibly play your system, knowing that it was your system and the kids just couldn't keep their hands off the controllers. It's an addicting machine. But they meaning Coleco, knew what they were in for, and they did it right, even with the game crash. Next time on the program, we're going to look at the one that came and saved the grace of the crash. We jump to 1985 with, of course, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Long history on that one. But before we go to the Nintendo, we'll have a toy next Tuesday or this Saturday coming up. We'll decide what that toy is going to be on episode number 75 of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Till then, I'm Jason Icanio. Thank you once again for your great support. And if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. We'd love to have you as part of our ever-growing family. See you next time. Bye-bye.